All right, welcome back, Antony. I've really enjoyed hearing about the journey because I think the journey is so important to how you got to where you are now. I mean, it's always important to everybody, but there's so many points in there that it sounds like taught you, experienced, and you've been able to transform into where you are right now in making a difference, but also in doing it that it's effective, not just saying I'm going to make a difference and I don't know how to do it anymore. So if you can go to the next part to talk a little bit about Planet Home. Is it for individuals? Is it potentially for corporates and their employees? Who are you looking to have, engage, or is it all of the above?
Yeah, great. It's a great question, actually. And it's actually one of our biggest challenges been from the beginning is, you can't talk about the planet without including everyone. And the problem with that, of course, from a marketing standpoint or a business standpoint, is if you don't identify your customer, right? It doesn't matter whether you're in for-profit or non-profit. If you don't identify what you're solving and your customer, then there's very tricky way forward. So, we actually have designed the system. There's a left-hand side of the business, which is really cultural content, which drives cultural conversations and really appeals to all of us in an everyday life, regardless. It's more of a lifestyle side. So we call that the retail side. And then, so that is really how we create our content. We tell our stories and we stay very much on the cultural side. That's the left-hand side of the brand. In the middle, we have our actions platform, which is coming up this year, which is really about the being able to measure actions and measure what we do so that you can actually look at the research and the data and the measurement tools. So we have a measurement tool now we've been building for a while, and it connects with pretty much like anything you want to calculate on actions. So if you want to do one less meat meal, we can calculate that. If you want to, reuse a t-shirt, we can calculate that. If you want to walk a mile instead of drive, we can calculate that. So there's a real calculations piece in the middle, and that's really the technology and science piece, which is intrinsic in, Robert Suarez's work and Neil Sahoda's work and Tom Chi's work, like them characters that really do that work for real on the tech side and environmental science side. And then we also have a very robust workshop business to business side called an Eco Sprint. And what that does is it enables us to bring in world leaders into workshops where we can set a solution goal, and then they can work through the Planet Home Eco Sprint framework to get to an end goal. So on the left-hand side, we have consumer and what they need and giving them real information, because that's really critical. They got to have the information for themselves. We have structured editorials. So like we have a really good way of building all our content and building all our structures and our research, so that on the left-hand side, it still swings inspiration and culture and art. In the middle, it is really sort of research and data. On the right-hand side, it's business responsibility. So we try to get from left to right and not leave anyone out. But we have also, found ourselves in the old age trap, which happens all the time, which is everyone can put any tail on any donkey they want. So the moment you put, we put Snoop with Bill Nye, and Peter Diamandis, and it's like, you've got like Silicon Valley X Prize with Bill Nye Science Guy and Snoop. Getting that across the line, and say Jen Say from Levi's, getting that across the line of a Levi's corporate responsibility conversation of how they're tackling circular economies into how Peter's looking at the world from an exponential technology standpoint, to someone like Neil Sahoda on the AI side, to AI for good, all the way over to Bill Nye and Snoop. That is what we've been trying to do, right? Is really connect what we call STEEP, which is our social and cultural capital, with our technological wisdom and tools, with our environmental science and our economic structures and requirements for capital. The P is for policy, but we stay away from politics, because that's the one thing we don't feel like we have a voice or want to have a voice in. There's many people doing that so well. And advocacy, we support them on our foundation side. The Planet Home Foundation does do amazing work in giving foundation grants to nonprofits. So, but yeah, that's where we've sort of been at, is, trying to identify how do we get them all to work. Because we also think we have to have, the perspectives, right? Without the perspectives, if you do the same thing over and over again, you are the crazy person. So for us to denounce anyone, right, whether it's the young versus the old, the this versus that, I'll just do this versus that. for us to ever do the this versus that, you're always actually alienating someone. And when you're in the planet business, you can't alienate anyone because we're all responsible for looking after this planet. So that's one of our challenges. But I would say we've lent into the university students for a lot of our editorial work. Like we have a great network of last year students doing their degrees, like PhDs and doctorates, then science degrees, and culture, and also fashion and circular economy. So a lot of the work we do on our learning is from our students because they're teaching us so much. Mm-hmm. And then we're bringing older experts in to work with them, to mentor them or to co-share. So we're always trying to get everyone to sort of split the spin, or like change the point of view and really focus on like the actions that are required. And we have a little line, which is like, actions over eyeballs. Like, how can we get people to move from Clubhouse, which is phenomenal, by the way, if you haven't been on it, like highly recommend it. TikTok, Clubhouse, Instagram, YouTube, like you name it. There's so many now, social platforms. Like that social capital is awesome. What is it going to take us to get to action capital? What is it really going to take us to get every individual person to commit to a better life, right? And you can look at that from any aspect, right? Quitting smoking is one I use a lot. Like if you're a smoker and you're trying to quit, that's a hard job, really hard job. Yeah. If you drink and you don't want to drink, that's a hard job. If you like your fatty foods and the doctor tells you that if you keep eating fatty foods, you're not going to be very well, that's a hard job. If you've had a hard day at work and you've been working and slogging it out and you can't keep up with the bills, and then you expect to go to the gym, psychologically, that's a hard job. So if we take that it's a hard job anyway in life, and we take that life has become difficult, and we try to spin that to doing less gives us more, and actually replacing things is not taking away. Taking away a bad food is not taking away anything from you. It's giving you the opportunity to save some money and get better health. Like our goal is to swing that and change that mindset. Change the mindset, change the hearts, right? And then you can make some change. So that's the kind of thought process.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And we do a lot of work with corporate leaders, family office leaders that actually do want to be leaders who care, if you will, and make an impact. But it's making an impact, not just giving money away, it's making an impact by, as you're saying, triggering an action triggers, unlocking capital to help them do this, help them do that. So if I would give you an example of, like, we have an initiative where we're educating, corporate employers to hire a chief well-being officer to implement well-being throughout their whole company. Or we have an initiative called Business for Peace, which is a whole number of experiences and training on things like non-flict to inclusion to trauma, a lot of different modules. And I'm talking about us, but this could happen with corporate. We work with corporates on these things. How would we bring Planet Home in as a partner to work on projects like that? Not to put you on the spot, but.
No, that's great. It's a great question. So one of the other things, and this is the layers at Planet Home, right? And this is a very layered idea that we have. There's two wonderful gentlemen, Daniel Smockenberg and Andrew Hewitt. And I actually should send you some highlights from their talk at Planet Home. Andrew Hewitt built, and if you're not familiar with it, you should check it out, a company called Game Changers 500. And it was, Andrew's concept was to ask that question. Who are the top companies in the world that profit plays a part at supporting, but the real star is the mission and the purpose? Mm-hmm. And so Andrew went around the world and he built a league called Game Changers 500. And he was highly focused on that question. And I was very fortunate enough on this journey to share some deep conversations with Andrew and Daniel. And Daniel's focus is on really trying to figure out how to demystify the information mess we're in. Like, how do we get people to understand really what's going on in the world and what we really are in the world? And so between the sort of work they've been doing, which is groundbreaking, and just my listening to them and learning from them, I think that there's been a problem for a long time we had I had this learning from Andrew, which is if you're a corporation, right, and you've built your culture and you're capital driven and you're quarterly driven, then your change is going to be driven by that culture that you've built. And most of them principle sets and most of them ideologies and most of that training and that corporate culture is going to be driven around capital and selling and marketing and product development. It's not going to be driven around purpose. It just isn't, because you never set your business up that way. Yep. So if you think about it as a cliff, right, and the whole cliff needs to move, and purpose and purpose and passion is here, and you're over here, you can't move that. It just doesn't move, right? And so then you have to say, how could I internally change my corporate responsibilities and my corporate? And you can't. It doesn't work. That's like saying, how can I get a household to do better by quitting smoking, or how can I get a household for, you know, eating better food and saving their electricity? Like, it's hard to get one household to find the time to do it as an individual cell, an individual unit on a micro level, let alone asking a global conglomerate like Coca-Cola to change their business model and stop selling plastic bottles and shitty fizzy water, right? Like, you know, like the fact we're addicted to sugar and plastic bottles, right? I'm sorry, Coca-Cola, but when you come out and state that the only reason why you still sell plastic bottles is because your consumer told you to, I understand, right, that you think that your consumer is your most important person, which is great. But the reason why Elon Musk is able to be Elon Musk, the reason why Steve Jobs is be able to Steve Jobs is, as much as they were consumer driven, they were also innovators. And they said, our consumer may not understand this, but we're going to do it anyway. So the fuck with it. So if you're driving a purpose business, you got to be brave, right? And you got to be strong, and you got to be willing to fail like a motherfucker, because the truth is I'm failing all the time, and I'm failing daily, because I don't know how to change people's perception of corporate America or corporate England or corporate fucking Australia or corporate India or corporate Thailand. Like, I don't know how to change that perception of it can't all be money driven, right? B Corps did a good job, triple bottom line, not moving quick enough. Great guys, like phenomenal idea. But I think that we all have to re-envision and be brave enough to rethink about business, period. A lot of this thinking comes from my partner, Gabrielle Hull. She's worked very hard and tirelessly on this, the idea of changing small incremental changes in LLC policies or in tax policies that could then open up the way that we report differently in terms of not having to do our quarterly filings. And I would also say that what's fascinating as we see here today is that I actually think the battle between retail, which is the really everyday person, and the corporate world and governments is at an all-time crisis. I think that the people are speaking out in a way that they've never done. And I think that the access to social media, the access to technology, the access to Bitcoin, decentralization, I think the access to information, the access to learning, the access to saying that you can no longer mystify us and lie to us, means that we now need more honest and open dialogue between all parties than we've ever had before. So I would say from how we everything we do is purpose driven every day. And so if you have anything that is focused on the planet and human well-being in our framework, there's a home for it. And it won't matter what it is. So whether it's health and wellness, right, on a general level, right, or whether it's land stewardship, oil and oil regeneration, or whether you want to go to green energy and the future of where we're going to go with, you know, batteries and cells, the Planet Home framework and the subject matter experts we've gathered over the last few years, and there's hundreds of them, have access, information, and learning about all these things from a technical and tactical standpoint. Yeah. Sorry if that was a little long, but it's one of my passions is that's the challenge.
Yeah, and it's brilliant, and we'll kind of complete here, but you're right about so many things. I have a number of executives that always tell me, I really do care, but as soon as the quarterly results are for this quarter, I'm already working on the next quarterly results, and I wish I had more time to actually do something. Now, they could if they wanted to for real, but I can understand the premise also. And I
Well, let's talk about that, because this is another one of the things that Gabrielle tried to drive home very early on in this, which is hearts and minds, right? So,
right.
you know, if you own, and we've seen this time and time again. I'll quote an amazing podcast in a second that speaks to this extremely well, actually. But if you're a CEO of any company, and let's just say you have a child, and let's say that child gets ill from whatever disease you want to put on the top of it, there is a sudden passion and a sudden change in the way you see the world. If you get sick, right, or the pandemic's a prime example, your empathy for doing good changes.
Absolutely.
The sort of balance issue here is that empathy, and we've just seen this play out in American politics more than anywhere else in the world, that empathy has never lived inside business, right? And America is a country of individualism, and that's the power of America. But that individualism also creates lots and lots of different worldviews. And if your worldview is built around your safety and security, which is the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, and your safety and security is built on your job and your community, it doesn't really matter whether I tell you that climate's real or not. Your worldview says that makes me unsafe. And right now, like quitting smoking, I don't want to quit smoking today. You know what? Today's not the day. So I'm not going to accept climate change because today's not the day. Right. I'm just going to put my worldview. Then I'm going to go find other people with my worldview, because I can do that now. And I'm going to get them to agree with me. And I'm going to create my own pocket, my own world, my own worldview. So if you're a corporation doing that on a large scale with, say, 50,000 employees, and you know in your heart you go home to your son or your daughter or your mum or your dad or your wife, your sisters or your brothers, and someone's sick or ill, you have to become a different character there than you do when you go back to your job. Your job still has the same controls and demands of you that day as they did the 10 years ago before we decided to pay attention. So they're trapped inside a system. So I think part of the change, honestly, and I think my hope and our hope at Planet Home was, if we could, and it's been a nightmare of a journey to get here, but if we could show that you could build a for-profit business that really is focused on purpose and solutions, and it's all about solutions, and it's all about bringing information and giving people the access and giving them the support to do the work themselves and empowering everybody to do the work. If we could do that, then maybe somebody else could do that too. And then maybe we could be out of business really quickly, because maybe that could just be an ideology that people like take on. It's like we have so many great other brands that have moved into the same space as us now. And this idea of getting individual actions done on an individual level, because once you give the person the empowerment, right, it's like a change of mindset and a change of heart, and give them the ability. And I think if we could do that inside the corporations, and we could really get them to fall in love, and the people to fall in love with the idea of it, then I think they could change their organization inside out. But I don't know what you would do if you were like Coca-Cola, right? And you're arguing for plastic bottles and fizzy water that's not good for us. Because there's, I grew up when we had like electric milk carts with milk bottles that were made of glass. Like, I don't know, but this whole notion that our generation didn't have better solutions and is completely, benign to being able to solve this, I think is part of the solve. We need all generations to come together, all people from all walks of life, to fix the planet, because it's not ours. It was given to us when we were born as humans. So anyway, that was a bit of a ramble there, but
no, it's a good ramble, and we will have to complete. But it's I think we're heading in the right direction. We've got a long way to go. But the good news is there are leaders who care out there. There are a lot of leaders of all ages that care and want to do something good, and they're looking for openings. And you're right. People they have to look at their short-term life right this second, whether it's security and making money and living. But I think people want more than that. They do want to make a difference, whether it's just for their family or their community, whatnot. And you'll know this better than most people. There's been studies up the wazoo about, aside from food and air, the thing that fills people's hearts and souls the most is belonging. And they want to belong in a community. They want to do something. They want to have a life that's fulfilled. So I think there's a big future here because we're also working with corporate leaders, family office leaders that are trying to figure out how do we make an impact, realizing that it is going to be good for business and it is going to be good for getting the right people to come work with them. Going back to your point about finding other people that believe in the same thing. So I think we're on the right track, and I certainly look forward to talking to you more about how we partner together, and even with other corporates about changing, changing.
Well, so that's my question to you, right? I'm going to ask you the same question you asked me now, just so that I've got something to take away from today and I get some value from this for both of us. Is how can we, do you think, with our web review and the things we've been doing, assist you and other purpose-driven people that you come across? How could Planet Home assist your journey? How could Planet Home be helpful?
Yeah, well, I don't know if we have to talk about the whole thing on the recording, but I'll give you a simple example and then we can talk off. We're constantly in conversation with, as I mentioned before, corporate leaders, family office leaders, impact investors that want us to be alongside them as external board of advisors, or as for ultra high net worth people and their families as just partners to take them on the journey they want to go to, and they want us to lead them and advise them and co-create with them ways to achieve their purpose, to achieve their mission, to align with impact that'll make a difference, whether it's helping indigenous people or well-being of their community and their employees, or peace or conflict resolution, whatever it may be. They all want to do that now. Now, to be honest, like you had said in one part before, someone now wanting to do it because they realize, oh man, I need to do it to get the people to join me, or I need to do it for this reason, it's good for business. But even them are realizing, this is the way to go. But they need some help on how to do it. And you're 100% right. We show them by certain initiatives we put together that it isn't about taking on the earth initially. It's like you said, micro steps, or however you described it. What steps can we take to move towards where we want to go? And how do we get our employees involved in it? And then how do we get the community involved in it? So there's a lot of different areas we can talk about that I think some of our clients would be interested in for sure. It's a matter of knowing, it's a matter of listening. It's a matter of listening to what turns them on the most, so that, out of all the 17,
what turns them off the most, right?
Or what turns them off the most. Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. And help them achieve it. And when they see it helps their business and it helps their community, it's what we call an omni-win, basically. It all comes together. So let's talk more about it. But hey, first of all,
let me give you a little seed to plant to that point as you go through your journey this year. When we get back into the Planet Home marketing machine, which we built a very large scale ability to move people at scale in terms of communication, I'll be very interested to see, as we've got these very sort of like complex but very kind of structured ways of organizing our programs and our information, if there is a track or a way in which we can align with you on how we've organized our areas and sectors and our interest, and maybe there is one specifically around this that we could help bring our community to as well, and set up some cadence for that, so that maybe it's more of a wider discussion that you could host with some of our leaders too, that are doing that work, and with some of the leaders that maybe aren't doing that work, and have them just come together to share what they're working on. Maybe there's some low-hanging fruit there.
Yeah, I think that's a spectacular idea. For example, yeah, we'll talk about this more, but for example, I mentioned Business for Peace. That's a title right now, but there's tech and data and finding out where and why there's conflict. There's a program like Nonflict that shows how to resolve conflict in a different way. There's inclusion programs. We're working on right now anti-racial systemic change. We're working with VR companies on having all this stuff even go down to the employees, spouses and partner and or partners, and even their kids, where kids get engaged with other kids of employees who are different with them. They use VR to feel like, what is it like to walk a mile, if you will, in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
That's how you get peace in business. That's how you get peace in your community. You get peace by, again, by, like you said, micro steps. You get peace by creating, food security. You get peace by understanding people better. You get peace by, community gardens in your community. There's a lot of ways to get peace. Bless you. And bless you for peace. And so that's something we can talk about, and it's a pretty interesting idea if we can get some leaders together to talk about that and how we can work together on that. That'd be super cool. So I'm game. Let me just complete this by saying, first of all, it's great to see you again, man. I'm glad you and everybody's healthy, and thanks for being on the Leaders Who Care, conversation series, and you're doing some great stuff, and so we're proud of you, and thanks for being on.
Thank you for even letting me on. So I really appreciate it. You've a host of amazing cast and crew that you've had on. So I feel very honored and very privileged. And, for me, I'm just humbly walking through life the best I can so I can leave some legacy for my son where it doesn't feel like I left him nothing.
No, that's a guarantee, I promise. And we're kind of like Commonwealth brothers anyway, aside from just being brothers in general. So it's my pleasure, man.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.